I'm Kellar.
I'm Kayla Green.
And we are from Hanover College. So we're going to start you guys off with a little story. Once upon a time, there was a guy named Steve, and Steve had a girlfriend named Sally. And they loved drinking together with friends. On any given night, Steve and Sally would be out at a party, having some drinks, when something would go wrong and they'd begin to fight. Steve would then punch the wall, and Sally would run out of the room crying. The next day, Steve and Sally would say, "I'm sorry, I love you, I was drunk." So, where have you heard this story before? Who here knows Steve or Sally? I'm sure everyone does. So, in our study, we are looking at drinking and its effects on relationship satisfaction within 3 mediators: trust, jealousy, and conflict. A big contributor to why these mediators are effective is alcohol myopia. And alcohol myopia is an increase in, alcohol myopia can be described as a lack of foresight or discernment. It's a narrowing view of something. I like to think of it as tunnel vision. So alcohol myopia can be charged with increasing jealousy, mistrust, and conflict between couples while drinking. So for example, in the story I just gave you, Sally's reaction to seeing Steve talking to another girl was a little bit extreme. Had she not been drinking, she probably would have rationalized with herself. She probably would have said, "I trust Steve. Steve would never cheat on me. I have no reason to be jealous." Our first mediator is jealousy, and jealousy can be described as a cognitive, emotional, and behavioral response that occurs when the existence of your relationship or quality of it is threatened by a third party. And then also, alcohol consumption may increase the possibility of one-night stands or other unfaithful actions. And then on the perceiver's end, it could make them jump to conclusions and increase their level of suspicion. Our next mediator is trust, and there's not a wealth of research on trust, especially linking it to alcohol consumption, so we really wanted to look at this. Trust can be defined using 3 factors: predictability, dependability, and faith. And predictability is simply the confidence you have that your partner is going to be there for you. Dependability is the assurance that you have that your partner's once again going to be there for you in the face of an unforeseen potential hurt. And then faith is just the feeling of certainty that you have that your partner is going to be responsive and caring towards you. Our last mediator is conflict. And the easiest way to explain this, there's a study done by McDonald where they took romantic partners and assigned them to either an intoxicated or an unintoxicated condition. And then they asked the couple to discuss a conflict that they had told the researchers about earlier. Intoxicated participants had more negative emotions surrounding the conflict. They had more negative perception of their partner's feelings. And lastly, they tended to blame their partner more for the conflict.
So, after looking at all these mediators, we came up with a hypothesis, and that is that higher levels of alcohol consumption will be found with lower levels of relationship satisfaction, and this relation will be mediated by jealousy, conflict, and mistrust. Our participants were Hanover College students, currently in a relationship, and every 3rd student was chosen from the Hanover College population. We did this, and I will tell you in the method section how we did this. We had a total of 70 respondents. 2 were omitted, and we had 15 males and 55 females. So the method was that we recruited the participants by email. First, we got all of the emails of every student at Hanover College, put it into Excel, and then we used a function to randomly mix up all these names. Then we just took the first 300 names and we sent them an email that had a link to our survey. If they were in a relationship, they could click the link and go to our survey, where they were then given an informed consent. And if they decided that yes, they wanted to do this, they clicked next, and they were given the survey that had a total of 46 questions that talked about demographics, alcohol consumption, jealousy, conflict, trust, and relationship satisfaction through sub-skills. They were then given a debriefing form after they filled out the survey.
As Kayla just mentioned, our survey was a lot of sub-surveys that we had taken questions from, and the first thing we needed was a way to measure alcohol consumption. We did this by using a survey that Weschler created in 2002, and when we decided to do our data analysis, we calculated a measure of consumption based on frequency times amount. Next, we took from a Pfeiffer jealousy scale, and this had very good reliability with an alpha of 0.85. And just 2 sample questions: I suspect my partner is secretly seeing someone of the opposite sex, and I worry that someone of the opposite sex may be chasing after my partner. You may recall from the definition I gave you of jealousy that it was cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. This specific survey covered all three, so we tried to make sure to take at least one or two from each of those. Next, we had our revised conflict scale created by Strauss. This had our lowest reliability, but it's still good at 0.66. And the majority of the questions were framed in a negative light. We had a few that were positive, and we actually ended up reverse scoring those for better data. Last is our, well, not last, but our trust scale, which once again had very good reliability with an alpha of 0.83. And just some sample questions. My partner has proven to be trustworthy, and I'm willing to let him or her engage in activities in which other partners find too threatening. And I am never certain that my partner won't do something that I dislike or will embarrass me. We ended up reverse scoring this question because, as you can see, it's a little complicated. There's a lot of aspects to it. And then last but not least, we needed a way to measure relationship satisfaction. And we used a scale created by Burns, very good reliability again. And these questions were originally one, and we decided that it was double-barreled, so we broke it down into two.
For our analysis, we used a mediation analysis that was developed by David Kinney. Basically, this is just a way for us to test the relationship between two variables. M would be said to mediate the relationship. So in our case, we were wondering if the relationship between alcohol consumption and relationship satisfaction would be mediated by jealousy, conflict, and mistrust. So our mediation results were as follows. You can see that when we looked at alcohol consumption with all three of the mediators, trust, jealousy, and conflict, they were all not significant with negative regression coefficients. And when we looked at alcohol consumption compared to relationship satisfaction and all, they again were not significant either. But when we did look at trust, trust, jealousy, and conflict when it came to relationship satisfaction, all of these were significant. So it does show that trust, conflict, and jealousy are important in relationships. They're just not connected with alcohol consumption and relationship satisfaction. So we also have a scatter plot that gives a better visual aid for you. As you can see, most of the scatter plot participants were on the lower end of length of relationship, which is on this side, and then alcohol consumption is on the bottom. We did not have very many heavy drinkers in our sample, and we also had shorter relationships with our participants. And as you can see, the darker colors signify longer relationships than the lighter colors. And most of our sample was very happy with their relationships. So we had very happy people because they had 3 or higher on the 1 to 6 Likert scale of relationship satisfaction. So this can also show you limitations. As I said, we had relationship lengths which were short. So if we could look at longer relationships, that would probably be better for future direction, or more invested couples, because we used a college sample, and if you're in college and you're dating somebody and you're not happy, it's easy to get out of that than it would be if you were married and had children or investments with a person. So that's a good way to go for future direction. Also, our questions were all framed towards opposite sex couples. So if we had any homosexual couples who took our survey, they might have found that a little disheartening. And we also put a time frame, such as in the last 2 weeks, which was very specific. So that could have hurt our data. If people were looking at the last 2 weeks, they might usually drink, and they didn't drink in the last 2 weeks. So if we could have done something like, when you usually drink, what happens, that kind of thing. So for our future direction, there may be a threshold or a tipping point of alcohol consumption where it starts to negatively impact a relationship. So more participants who consume alcohol on a regular basis and higher frequency may deliver more compelling results for this kind of study.